Elissa. Welcome back to Unleash Your Inner Creative. This is huge. You were here last time and you were bald, and now you've grown this amazing head of hair, so much so that you were afraid it was gonna hit the mic. And it's just so beautiful to have you back and talk about your journey. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited because the first time we talked was really the first time I sat and talked it out with anyone. And it was during such a unpredictable time. So much has happened since, and obviously the tough way of cancer, but some really neat silver linings that is an exciting update too.
Yeah, what would you say has been the best silver lining of this time period from then until now, which was about 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was a couple years ago, and I think I had just started the GoFundMe for WeGotThis.org and kind of getting into that general concept, which it's interesting because even from talking about that originally with you, everything is held true. Like nothing's changed that drastically, which is kind of neat. But at the same time, it's grown just exponentially. And the way that that impact has been able to grow and the amount of time I've been able to spend on that and building that community has been, I think, the best silver lining for me personally. And then I feel like it's really creating this new need that I saw was missing and other people agreed.
Yeah.
So it brought it into reality.
What is it like going from having an idea in your head to then it getting out of your head and literally manifesting into the world? Like, what has it been like to see your idea take legs like that?
It's so hard for me to take a second ever to like look at that. Like even you saying that, it's like, yeah, you know?
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to pause because I'm always, I think what fuels me is that energy to keep that going. There's always more that I want to do, and not in a negative way, not like, oh, it's never enough. In a way that I enjoy it so much that like as we do things, I'm like, oh, but I want these features to be on the site, and I want to do this for these hospitals, and I want to partner with this nonprofit and other things. That it is wild to think about, like we're a couple years later, but it feels like we're like 10 years later, you know? And I think that was my sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And I think I am so in the moment of it that I rarely step outside and appreciate it, which I think I should do more.
Definitely. But I'm also inspired by your sense of urgency and your commitment to fully living. And I think that there's so much, no matter what your journey is health-wise, that everybody can learn from the way you've approached life for the past 3 years now. It's going to be 3 years on Monday. It's wild. What would you say is like the best piece of advice you can give anybody listening about going after their dreams with that sense of urgency, passion, and just like mind and possibility? Like, how can they start thinking and living like you?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I also think it's so important that anyone listening knows that I very much still have cancer.
Right.
In fact, like while I'm celebrating my 3rd year cancerversary, I have 3 years on Monday living with cancer, I very much am still in chemo. You know, people don't realize because I'm not bald anymore, but I've never stopped doing chemo. And it's changed and evolved what having cancer means for me. But I know that it's not gone. I have stage 4 breast cancer. It's there, whether it's controlled, it's never in remission, it's never not there completely, but I can live with it. And once I realized that my goal doesn't have to be to beat cancer. I don't have to live to see a cure. I hope I do. That would be amazing. But I also don't want to feel like a failure if I don't. And I think that there's so much along the way that's amazing. Like some of the drugs that I'm on that are saving my life didn't exist, 10 years ago.
Right.
And I'm a part of clinical trials and drugs that are just starting to exist. I could be on drugs that are a cure and we don't know it yet.
Yes. Let's speak it into existence.
Yeah, let's keep this in the archives just in case. But what's so important to me is that people hear that and feel that, not just if they have cancer. Just that's not a prerequisite for understanding that we're worth living and not just surviving or staying alive. And I've had ups and downs with treatment, but I've never had an extended period of time where I felt like giving up.
Yeah.
There was definitely some times where I felt like I don't know that I can live with this level of symptoms that took turning points to make changes. But overall, I've never considered like, this is too much doing the nonprofit or anything like that. If anything, it's like the harder times that it gets, the worse that I feel at different times, I feel this urgency to do more.
Yeah.
It truly is so healing to me to get to be a part of something that now it's not that I've created it, like we've created it. Like, even just from our initial conversation, the things that came out of that are ideas that are still imprinted, and we got this today. And now I have a few employees, so many volunteers and contractors. We have friends helping to spread that word. And that's really my life's mission is we got this. But, higher level overview, my life's mission is to redefine success and to make sure that whatever people's life circumstance is, they value their life and living it in comfort above anything else. Because otherwise, you might die at, 30, but you get buried at 80, right?
Right. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I heard that recently. My friend Jacob from my trip in Costa Rica kept saying that to me, kind of off of what I say, and that resonated so much.
It's true. So many people bury themselves, and they just accept that this is what their life is, and they're not even sick, but they do decide that their life is over or that their dreaming is over at a certain point. And that's what I'm so inspired by with you, because what I took away from that too is you have a great way of staying optimistic while also admitting what your reality is. And I think it's a beautiful line to walk, because I think so many people go so far in the either direction. They're like, oh, this is terrible. Everything sucks. Everything's awful. This is the worst. Or it's I'm not even going to acknowledge that this is happening. I'm going to live in delusion, and pretend like everything's fine when it's not. And you walk this beautiful line of what I call angsty optimism. It's seeing the truth of a situation, but believing the best possible outcome could still be. What's your advice for other people on how to embody that energy and how to be honest about their life and their struggles while still believing the best possible thing can happen?
I think that creating your own metrics for what that means.
Yeah.
For me, I don't consider, I guess theoretically the best case scenario is that I get cured from cancer and don't have it.
Yeah.
Right? But that's not really what I strive for. Just like we were talking recently about when I was training for my marathon, and how my grandma the night before the race was like, good luck tomorrow. I hope that you win, and it was funny. I laughed and I was like, oh, no. My goal, not even close. I'm not going to win the 26.2 mile run race. To me, it wasn't a race. It was to finish.
Right.
And I think that setting realistic expectations of ourselves, and not just realistic, lowering the bar for ourselves, I don't need to win a marathon. That doesn't enhance my life. That's not the one, my body's not built for that. Yeah. But even if it were, that's not my ultimate goal. Just like my ultimate goal doesn't have to be curing cancer. My bigger picture goal is to live a full, happy, comfortable life.
Right.
And that's with or without cancer. That was always my life's goal. So now with cancer, it's how do I adapt to my situation currently to make that still happen? And I think that continuing to bring back to that is so important for anyone. Cancer is just the hypothetical adversity in the mix. And anything that it is, we all face discomfort and hard times and things throughout our lives. And that's all unique to us. No one has it worse or better like you or you. And take that and find the metrics of your own success and be true to that, because you should feel successful. You don't need to compare yourself to the person next to you. It's all about what makes you feel complete.
Yeah, I think it is so difficult, especially with social media being what it is. We think we can see everything about people's lives, even though we see 2% of it, and only the best things usually.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to fall into a comparison trap. And something weird that I notice myself doing is when I see somebody online that I'm like, oh, they've done the things I want. I'll look up when they did it to see if they did it before the age I'm at or after the age. And then I'm if it's after, I'm oh, thank God I still have time. But it's what timeline am I on? Whose timeline am I on? Everybody's got their own journey. What's your advice for people out there who are struggling and in the throes of comparing themselves endlessly to other people's success or perceived success?
I think about this so much, and I try to be really true to it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I don't post when I'm not feeling well or tired, because I wouldn't think to record myself in bed. And I've done it a couple of times where I post a picture and be like, I am tired, I don't feel well.
Yeah.
And proof of that. And I think that there's so many beautiful things that can come out of social media. I have so many friends through social media that I can relate to and they can relate to me, and we've never met. It's just simply through the community of content that we're putting out there. But I think that, again, it's creating your own metrics, your own timeline, and your own definition of your success, and knowing that you always, it's an interesting concept of like, you always have time to do it, but at the same time, we don't never know how much time we do have.
Yeah.
And this idea that we are all terminal. I don't think that I'm dying tomorrow, but we all could, and living life where you can feel good about what you're doing. I've never been happier than I am now in terms of what I do, like my career. And I say in quotations because it's not really, I guess, I'm technically not even employed by We Got This. I'm a volunteer.
Yeah.
But
it is your career.
It is.
It's your vocation, I would say.
It's really a whole part of me. And it's interesting because a lot of people will say cancer doesn't define you. And people say it to me encouragingly. And if you've said that, that's totally okay to anyone out there. But in a weird way, it kind of does. And I think that that's okay. I think I've made the definition of how it defines me really true to myself. And it's allowed me to be most authentically myself and live life the way that I see it differently because I have cancer.
Right. I think like when people say that, what they want to say to you is like, you're not just a patient. You're not just like the hardship you're going through. You are a full human being. You're not just this like story of what people narrowly understand cancer to be. Yeah. And I think that's true with any of us. Like we are not the hardest thing we're going through, but we can use it as like fuel and share our story, make other people feel less alone, like destigmatize it if we do feel any of that in it. And something you and I were talking about, because I think you've shared your story so beautifully and you've been so open, and I think it's made a lot of people either dealing with cancer or people who have family members or friends who are dealing with cancer feel less alone, feel seen, feel like there's hope. And we talked about how that hasn't been easy for some of the people in your life. And something I really believe in is that everybody has the right to share their story. And yes, we do have to be sensitive when other people are involved, but we still have the right to share our version of reality and acknowledging that other people have a different version, and that's okay. But talk to me a little bit about that. How did you decide that you wanted to share your story so publicly? Maybe if you're open to it, some of the pushback you've received, and advice for other people who are starting to get up the courage to share their own story of whatever their adversity is.
From initially getting diagnosed, and I waited a couple weeks till I had all the information, and then I posted about the fact that I had breast cancer. And at first I didn't have a lot of information at all. Like I knew that my the biopsies were malignant, but I didn't know yet that it had spread throughout my body, and I was stage 4 and all these things. So by the time I posted about it, I did get pushback leading up to that from family, like, you're not gonna post about it online or that, and I think that's a generational thing as well. And I totally respect when people want that to be private. And I found that I needed it to be public for a few reasons. For myself, the support of it being public really fuels me, and it's unbelievable and amazing how wonderful people are and want to be. And the biggest thing I found when I was diagnosed, which is what sparked the idea of We Got This, is everyone wanted to help. And which is amazing, but that is a burden unintentionally placed kind of on everyone. And it's shocking, right? It's like this thing where, yes, I have cancer and there's the inner circle of like my husband and my parents, my daughter, and that you're focusing on. But then there's all these residual people throughout your entire life who are finding out that someone their age, someone they grew up with has, stage 4 cancer. That's really jarring and scary. And I really felt empathetic towards that.
That's really sweet of you. Here you are going through such a treacherous time, and you're like, oh, I feel bad for them that they're observing me going through this difficult time. And that it's triggering for them because it's making them remember their own mortality. Because that's exactly what's happening, and you know that.
I know that. I do know that. And It's so true.
Yeah.
But I think about it like, okay, so if sharing my story helps me, it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And feel supported, but it also gets to help everyone else. How wonderful is that?
Yes.
Like the whole idea of nobody wins unless everyone wins is really important to me. And that's been throughout my whole career, whether it was in finance, sales, like any of that, I've always felt that way. And I feel that that's genuinely what's made me successful in my career, but also like in living life, currently. And sharing it in a small way, just like personally at first, and then as it evolved into the nonprofit, felt so natural for me because I really got to do all these things that I always did, like collaborating, partnering. The way that I work with other nonprofits and companies right now is so fun for me. I always say it's like the best sales job I've ever had because I'm selling this idea to support people. And it's not just supporting people with cancer. It's supporting the people who support people with cancer. And ultimately, I do believe that that's everyone.
It is.
We're all affected in some way. Unfortunately, but fortunately, we can create these communities and things to do that. So I felt comfortable sharing publicly. I know not everyone does, and that's totally fine. I really try to offset that expectation, like success during cancer doesn't have to be starting a nonprofit, right? Like it doesn't have to be sharing your story or other things. It can be whatever that means to you. There was a period of time where I was just golfing every day. I got into golf from chemo, low impact. I really enjoyed it. It felt very like meditative to me. And that's what I did for a little bit. And I had friends when I was starting the nonprofit be like, can you please not do that? Can you just keep golfing? Like, can you just keep like living life? You don't need to work. You don't need to do things for others. And I talked to Eric, of course, my husband at the time, my husband.
At the time he was my husband, but that ship has sailed. Bye, Eric.
I'm glad we came to this professional setting.
To air our dirty laundry, because we're going to go in on Eric now.
Eric?
Or I like to call him Rick.
Just rip him apart. Eric is the most amazing life partner ever. It's just anyone who knows Eric, I can't believe I got so lucky to have Eric and I's relationship. I think has only gotten, more in depth and evolved through this process where I know it can just tear down so many scenarios and I'm so grateful for that. But Eric, who's still very much my husband, almost on 11 years married now, we were talking, and then why I said at the time, my therapist at the time, who I'm still close with. I asked her, I said, am I doing too much? Like, can I tell you this, and can you from the outside looking in objectively tell me, like, is this not the right thing for me to be doing? And I explained it to her, and she said, Elissa, you have to do this. Like, this is who you are. Like, this is what you have to do. Like, you deserve to do this. And that gave me the validation that I needed. And I've had therapists and people since disagree with that. And I actually just a couple weeks ago called my old therapist back. She had moved, and I called her and I said, I need to talk this through to you because I need to know if this still holds true. We're 2.5 years later from that moment. And she said exact same things. And I think that, again, we know what's right for us. People close to us, like Eric knew what was right for me. And he puts up with, I call them crazy ideas because I've been saying this a lot. I use the word crazy because I think other people see it as crazy, and I almost do it, again, kind of like I was saying, empathetic to them. I'm like doing it to make them feel comfortable.
Let me appease you and tell you my idea is crazy, even though it's the sanest thing I've ever heard.
But to me, it's totally normal. And we were just on a board directors call for We Got This, and my stepdad's on the call, and he was a chief medical officer in Newton Wellesley Hospital in Boston, all this stuff. And people were laughing, joking about, what crazy idea has Elissa told you throughout your life? And everyone raised their hand about an idea except for him. And I said, Les, you were one of the first people I told this idea to, so you can't not have your hand up. He goes, well, I didn't think it was crazy at all.
Oh, Les.
Yeah, so thank you, Les. And my mom definitely was weighed in on that too. But it's true. I say those things because it's like that helps protect I think to me, it's a shield for me to protect myself from other people saying it. I'm going to say that so that you can't say it to me, because I know that everything I'm doing might seem crazy to someone else, but it's so right for me.
Yeah, that's really important, because I think so often we don't do the things that we want to do because of some narrative, whether it's true or not, that we've conjured in our heads about what other people will say if we do the thing. And there is a power in like knowing the narrative other people may think and deciding you don't care. And I think that's really beautiful. I also love that you asked your therapist like a version of, am I okay? Because I do that all the time. I'm like, do you think I'm okay? Do you think I'm making a good decision right now? Like, I need a yes or no answer. Like, don't give me like, what do you think? I want to know. I'm paying you to know. And I think that's important. So I really encourage anybody listening, feel free to ask your therapist if they think you're okay. And if they say no, fire them. No, I'm kidding.
They say no, find one that will. I went with my friend recently she got a tattoo.
Yeah.
And she asked me to come with her, and she had come with me when I got my tattoo. And she was going through the design and all that, and I like gave some opinions, and she goes, I'm gonna be honest. She's like, I love your opinion. She's like, I really brought you because I knew that you would support me and be my cheerleader no matter what I wanted to do.
That's a great thing though.
Yeah, and it was like, I kind of ask people sometimes when they do ask my advice, it's like, okay, which outcome are you hoping to substantiate? Because I think that there's certain times where certain things just might seem obviously right or wrong.
Right.
But then there's a lot of times where it's very unclear.
Most times, actually.
Most times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that taking the side of like, okay, which way do we want to try to substantiate this to make it a reality? And like maybe work that way first.
Yeah. Or ask yourself, what outcome do you actually want?
Exactly. That was
what would be most likely to draw the line between your action and the outcome you desire? Because I think sometimes we don't think enough. Like, I actually had a mentor who described this way of like getting what you want in life. And he would say, you need to write down everything you're doing on one side of the list and everything you want on the other side of the list. And if you can't draw a line between the thing you're doing and the thing you want, off the list. And I thought that was so brilliant. And then you can also see where the holes are. Like, if there's nothing that you're doing that goes toward one of your major goals, then you have to add something to the list. And I really like that way of thinking, of being like thinking from the end, basically. Instead of like, here are the actions I'm going to take. It's like, here's the outcome I want. What actions do I need to take? I did want to ask you too. We talked about how when you were younger, you didn't think you were creative. When you first were starting your career, you're like, I'm just business minded. I'm a salesperson. And how this experience has really helped you reclaim your creativity. Would you share a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. When we were talking about that, a lot of it had to do with growing up. I felt literally creative. You know, I was in plays and did art classes and all that. And then when I did transition into more, I went to business school. I went to a school that's only everyone majors in business management. Babson College is entrepreneurship, business management. But I mean, entrepreneurship is so creative. It's just, I think I narrowed that thinking. So when I moved to LA and booked a one-way ticket and spontaneously did that, which is kind of a theme of my personality, and just to pivot here real quick, I think a theme of yours from what I've experienced,
Yes.
which I love, because the first time we met was through virtually when I did your podcast.
Yeah.
So that was really the first time we connected and chatted, which is so cool that it's so
we're
full
here.
Circle. We're back in person.
In person. I don't know why that was what I thought of. Robot time.
Following your lead.
See, I love you because you play. Robin Thomas.
Well, and so the fact that we had a 7-hour car ride warm up.
Yeah.
So what? It was last weekend.
Yeah, it was a week ago today.
A week ago today.
At this time, we were talking. And you're like, you know what? Say what you said.
Yeah. So I was talking to you about the idea of podcasting and picking your brain around that. And then we were talking about public speaking and how we're both working towards that. And it wasn't, it was only a few weeks before that I was talking to Erin from Seco Space, who we're with today, about, recording Keynote and getting an audience and all of that and coming out to Arizona. And then when we were talking, it's like, well, wait, you're doing this too. Would you want to just come with me and we can do it together? Yeah. And that's always how I think, is like, I just always think we're stronger together. I think like I'd always want a percentage of something than 100% of nothing. And I think that like bringing that together, one, it's more fun. But I think we also each can accomplish so much more doing that. But what I love most about it is when I presented that to you, you were like, what did you say? You said, I think I have to say yes. Yeah.
Well, because the night before, I literally was saying to my boyfriend, I want to book a public speaking gig. And then the next day, you offered it to me on a platter. And I was like, is it that easy? I should start saying what I want more. But that is one thing, like we were talking about declarations. When you declare what you want out loud, boldly, to a person you can trust, especially, who can hold that dream with you and won't say, oh, you're never gonna get that. Who can hold and be like, yeah, go for it. Things do happen rather quickly. If you really believe in it and you believe in your capability to do it, I really believe life, the universe, God, like meets you where you are, and then people come into your life that help you get there quicker.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that too is by putting it out there, how are people gonna know what you're trying to do unless you put it out there? I didn't know that you were trying to get into public speaking until I saw your post about it.
Right.
And then you were doing that event that you hosted, and then like it just made, and then I was like, oh, I've been meaning to catch up with Lauren and we should talk about this. And like all that organically resulted in us driving to Arizona together, listening to Rob Thomas most of the way.
Robin Thomas. Most people don't know his birth name, but that is it.
I was thinking of a longer version of Rob, and for some reason I didn't think of Robert.
Robert didn't come to mind at all for this
Robin.
Robin Thomas.
Robin Thomas.
Shout out to one of our generation's best songwriters.
We arrived in Arizona just a couple hours before 3 a.m.
3 a.m. How on the nose?
90s.
Yeah. But long story short, it has been amazing to see how you've converted your way of thinking of, oh, I am this businesswoman only. Like I am just going to like do logical, like they call it convergent thinking, A plus B equals C, to like, let me sit here and daydream and then make the daydreams happen. So you've got the convergent thinking partnered with the divergent thinking. And now you're using like every part of your life, your childhood where you knew you were creative, and your early adulthood where you were just doing the business. And you finally met those two people, the younger version of Elissa and the slightly older version of Elissa, into this beautiful, wise woman you are today. So it's been beautiful to watch you unleash your inner creative and to see how many people you've also inspired along the way to do the same. Whether they're thrivers, cancer thrivers, or people who are friends and family, or just people in your community. I know you sharing your story and going so boldly after what you want, like it's really inspired me. Because I'm like, if Elissa could accomplish this much while she's undergoing that much, like I really have no excuse to like not go for my dreams. And to not just ask, like you're so good at just asking.
I try to ask and partner in a way that's always mutually beneficial.
Yes.
So like today, and we were just talking and making connections on ways that you and Erin in Sequospace can work together too. And like we can all help each other in so many impactful ways. I always see that as coming around. I never look for something just to look for it. I always try to figure out like how can we all succeed, and genuinely, because I do also feel from my own perspective that I'll succeed more too. Like and it's more fun doing it.
Yeah.
But I also just appreciate so much that you saw my inner creative before I did. And I didn't really think of that till you were saying that now, is because you asked me to be on the podcast originally, and at that time I don't think I would have necessarily considered myself a creative.
Wild.
Right?
It's interesting to me when I invite people to come on the show and they're like, I'm not creative though. I'm like, hello, look at your life. Like you had the most creative idea. Like you're making a registry for cancer patients. Like literally no one's done this before, because my definition of creativity is somebody who sees something in their mind's eye and then makes it out in the world, in mind's eye, and then makes it out in the world. So like someone who creates something from nothing, and that's you. Anybody who
Likewise.
generates something.
When I think we attract each other.
Right.
Because we can all be so different in what we create. Like Eric, my wonderful husband of almost 11 years now, been together 15 and forever to go. We're so different in how we're creative. He's such a talented musician. He works so differently than me. He's so much more attention to detail and other things. And we're such a great balance. We're both creative, but now I can say that. So thank you for bringing that out of me. But it's different. And I've inspired him in different ways where he's kind of taken more of a business look at certain creative things. And I've maybe taken more of a creative look at other business things I'd consider.
Yeah.
But it really has brought a lot out of me. And I particularly think back to like when I was a financial advisor and primarily working corporate retirement plans, and I'd wear business suits. And I felt a little younger than what the age people would expect what I was doing to do. So I'd always dress up a little bit more. When I was 18, my freshman year of college, I actually got my real estate license and I rented out apartments in Back Bay of Boston. And I got a business suit and, I got my license and I rented out, quite a few apartments that paid for me to go to LA for my internship and other things.
Amazing.
And I didn't want anyone to know I was 18. So I always was kind of feeling this, like, I need to present myself in such a way. And I think for the first time, and it really hit me when I started with Impact 11, which is the public speaking community I was in at the boot camp, Jamie Hess got on stage and talked a bit about what you wear for your presentations, like your branding, your image, and how you feel, how you're kind of projecting that to others. And that really motivated me to be like, okay, I'm a sneaker person. I'm gonna wear sneakers. Like, that's what I'm more comfortable in. When I used to work at the Apple store in college and other things, I always wore fun sneakers. I was like known for it. My brother was really into sneakers. It's always been a big part of my life. But like, I always would put on my, heels or nicer flats for a meeting, go back to my car, go to my trunk, swap them for my flip-flops, and then go to my next meeting. I was never comfortable in them. That wasn't what I wore for the day. That wasn't what I would choose to wear.
You're dressing up as what you thought you should be instead of who you were.
And now I think I really have that confidence and I'm seeing it. I think other people feel that confidence that I'm so sure of what I'm doing and who I am, that I don't need to dress in any certain way that other people feel. I'm gonna tell people by who I am and what I'm doing. Yeah, that thought didn't finish, but you get where I'm going.
Yes, it did. You don't need to like dress up as something because you are the thing.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like pretend to be a businesswoman. You are a businesswoman. And you can do it in your own authentic way. And that's also, I think, part of embracing your creativity is embracing the things that make you authentically you. So I'd love to end with this. I believe the key to unleashing creatively is self-love, self-trust, and self-knowledge. That if we can build those things up, we can really get to a place where we have a very stable platform to share ourselves authentically. How have you gotten there? Where are you at in that journey with self-love, self-trust, and self-knowledge? And if you have any advice for people to leave them with, I'd love that.
Awesome. I'm always growing in that sense. I do feel most authentically myself than I ever have. And I think that that's not only myself giving me that permission, but situationally, I am in a spot where not many people are gonna tell me to do otherwise.
Yeah.
And that's rare, and I don't want other people to be in that spot, right? Like that is a lot because I have cancer, and we joke about the cancer card and those things. But I had this moment that I'm like, well, no one's gonna tell me not to try this. No one's, right? Like, I don't have to feel chained down to my career the way that I felt I did a few years ago. But that cancer doesn't need to be the prerequisite for that. And I'm not saying that you need to go and blow up your life and change your jobs and all this. But
maybe you should, though.
But maybe you should. And we were talking about this too, and this is, I think, an important thing, is I never worked my regular, like normal corporate jobs more than a couple of years at a time. And I'd work really hard, I'd do really well, and then I'd move on. And it was never the right thing. It wasn't fulfilling enough for me to stay in it long term. What I'm doing now, and we talked about this for you too, it's like, I'm really just loving the way of, I really feel the unleash your creativity part now.
Yeah.
I don't think that it clicked for me the first time we talked. Like, it's really
I see you owning
me.
it in this moment. It's like, it's wild to watch you light up. Because the first time you were kind of just telling me the facts and like, this is what happened, A plus B equals C. You're still kind of in that, convergent thinking way of being. And now I see you transitioned into this embodied way of being.
Like, we didn't talk about the story of how I was diagnosed today, and I don't think that that's important for what we're discussing, and I don't think that's important for life. Like, I don't think that anyone needs to be living in fear that they're gonna get cancer. Like, I don't have genetic mutations, a lot of things that scare people because they try to figure it out. Like, oh, how did she get cancer at 34? I'm 37 now. And I think what's important is that whatever comes at us, who I am now is who I've always been.
Yes.
And I feel like I've been able to tap into that a lot more because of freeing myself into feeling that.
Yeah. And when you said I have the cancer card, I was just thinking combining with what you said, you don't have to wait for something really hard or awful to happen to you to reclaim your life. Like, what if we could all pretend like we do have some sort of card that is like a get out of jail free card, basically, of life. And like, we shouldn't be waiting for something really difficult to happen. We should know, like you said, we are all terminal. And so if you're living your life based on what somebody else thinks is good for you, you are putting yourself in the grave prematurely. And you really have to listen to your own inner voice and go with that. And if the people in your life don't support it, then maybe they're not for you. But like, you have to be for you. You can't reject yourself. Like, I really believe the only failure comes from self-rejection, from like stopping yourself before you even start.
Yeah.
So thank you for being a beautiful example of that out in the world, because we all need to follow suit more and like play the life card.
Yeah.
Because we only have one wild and precious life. We have to live it.
Well, I'm going to end with this because I think it's the most important thing I have to say.
Yeah.
Is you said to me on our car ride, you know, how I'm changing lives and saving lives potentially by sharing my story. And it really, I feel like the time knowing you and the time we've going to spend, and even just this conversation, I have to say that I'm sure many people feel this way, but you've changed my life in unleashing my creativity. And I truly wholeheartedly feel that. And I think that it's amazing the way you're changing the world and that people are seeing it and recognizing it with the Webby Awards and the recognition that you're getting. So thank you for what you're doing.
Elissa, you're going to make me cry. Thank you. I love you.
I love you
and
too.
I'm so proud of you and so inspired by you. And thank you for being who you are in the world. Who you are is the best thing about you.
Likewise.
Peace out, Robin Thomas.
Love you, Eric.
Rick.